Good day, everybody. This is D. Marcel Platoon. Welcome to another edition of the Stagger Screen Podcast. We're bringing it back. It's been a long time since we've done it, so very excited to bring the best in the world of professional basketball to the airways. We're recording this on June 21st, 2019. Hope everyone is doing well. Brought back the Stagger Screen Podcast. We brought back Verbal Submission a few weeks ago. Was very excited about that, so we want to bring back another podcast, a sports specific podcast that we've done in the past. We have a Sports Inquirer show, which we try to do once or twice a week. Make sure you head to sportsinquirer.net to get our archives of that show. But we also have different specific shows. As I said, we done Verbal Submission, which is based on combat sports, and now we're going to do Stagger Screen. I figured with the NBA draft taking place last night, it'd be a very good time to bring this show, dust it off, and bring it back to the airwaves. So we are, and the last time we did a show, I believe, was in 2017 as far as the Stagger Screen. So, once again, very excited to bring it back, and we'll see how it goes. But as always, if you want to follow everything that we're doing, go to the sportsinquirer.net. We were able to attend the Atlanta Hawks presser yesterday with General Manager Travis Schlenk. So we discussed the Cam Reddish selection and the direction of the Hawks program. And we'll play some audio from that as well, and Cam Reddish. But if you want to get the full video of his presser on NBA Draft Night, make sure you head to our site and do that. You go to Facebook, The Sports Inquirer, those separate words. Make sure you join our group there. And Twitter and Instagram, Sports Inquirer, all one word. You join those social media platforms, you'll get all of our up-to-date tweets and photos and videos. We try to take a snippet of all the things that we attend and put it on those platforms as well. So make sure you do that. And then if you want to hear the full archived shows that we've done in the past, present, and future, from the Sports Inquirer show to Verbal Submission to now Stagger Screen, make sure you subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud. And you do subscribe to that, you'll get all of our immediate updates, and we'll go from there. Pretty straightforward show today with the world of professional basketball. We're going to discuss the NBA draft, right from the presentation to the selections themselves. And as I said, we have that audio from the Atlanta Hawks, so we'll play that during the show. And then maybe touch on the free agency picture. Not really much going on yet since free agency hasn't started, but speculations abound. So we may touch on some of those as well. So we're going to take our first break, and when we come back, we're going to delve deep into the NBA draft here on the Stagger Screen Podcast. All right, and welcome back to the show. Actually, let me turn my volume up a little bit. Let's see what we're doing. Okay, yeah, there we go. We're good. Yeah, so NBA draft 2019 took place last night on June 20th, 2019. Not too many surprises as far as the picks go. We'll go over the first round, a little bit pick by pick, and break it down. And I think that'll be the best way to have all of the overarching themes and selections and my thoughts on it. But presentation itself, I've been saying this for many, many years, and I guess seeing the different drafts and how they're done, NFL is the biggest one. It's the one that encompasses the most attention. And we're so used to the process of the player being selected, if they're in the stadium or arena or now outdoor stage, the way the NFL does it, if they're attending the event, like Kyler Murray, who was the number one pick by the Cardinals this past year. So he shows up to the draft. Commissioner Goodell announces his name. He has the Cardinals hat on. They give the jersey, usually the home jersey, the home colors, with the number one because it's the first round pick. And the player gets to hold the jersey up. He has the hat on. It's a presentation, and we're used to that. And that process does not take place in the NBA. My point is, I'm annoyed with the fact that the trades themselves of the draft picks are not incorporated into the draft. And the reason that takes place is that in the NFL, say this past year, when they had the draft, the year is concluded. The calendar, not necessarily the calendar year. It's like the school year. If you're in school, you started around August, you ends around May or June, wherever you're located. So the academic year closes in June or May, you're done, and then you move on to the next year, and you complete your grades and things like that. The NFL is able to do that before the draft takes place. They close the year down. It's concluded. Super Bowl happens. Combine, all that stuff. The year's done, and they move on to the new league year. So whatever trades are announced or transactions, they are able to have a smooth transition to the draft. The NBA does not do that because right now, technically, we're still in the basketball season of 2018-2019. We'll just say 2019, keep it concise. So we've had the NBA Finals, seen the Raptors win, all that stuff. They've had the parade, everything's done. But we're still technically in the 2019 year. So all of these trades that you've heard about, from the Anthony Davis transaction with New Orleans and the Lakers to some other ones that have gone on, all that is still taking place, or all that is supposed to be for the next scholastic sporting year for the NBA. So we're still archived. We're still back in the Warriors and Raptors playing in the finals. So that's why all these proposed trades, and we'll go down to draft picks and things like that, it does not count towards the new year. The new year starts, I've heard free agency around the pre-agency will start around July 1st, but I think it's July 4th or 5th is when technically you have the first day of the new year. So that's why when we get to the Hawks, they technically did not select DeAndre Hunter yet. The Lakers technically did it, even though that draft pick has been traded to New Orleans and New Orleans traded it to Atlanta. It's a complete mess. And the league seems to enjoy it. The NBA, I should say. They show montages of players like Chris Webber, Penny Hardaway, Vince Carter, Antoine Jameson, and other players swapping hats like it's a good thing. What used to happen in the 90s and 2000s as well is you would have and it's not the best solution, but it's better than the alternative of what we have now. At the end of the first round, you could announce the trades. So that's when you would see guys, the rights to the trades with Penny Hardaway and Chris Webber. Technically, the Warriors, I think it was back in 93, 93 or 94. The Warriors had the number one overall pick, and Orlando had the number one overall pick, and the Warriors had the third pick. So in essence, they swapped picks. They traded the picks, one and number 3. Or the Warriors had the number 1 pick, and the Magic had a number 3 pick. But since they couldn't technically do it until the end of the first round, you had the Magic select Chris Webber, and in the third pick, the Warriors selected Penny Hardaway. And that just caused a lot of confusion. But at the end of the round, they swapped the hats, and those guys ended up Webber to the Warriors and Penny Hardaway to the Magic, and they all went from there. Now we can't even do that until early July. And that's where you have confusion from fans, spectators, because you look at the Hawks pick. We were told before the draft even started, Atlanta has the 3rd overall pick, or the 4th overall pick, excuse me. But during the draft proceedings of the night, we see that the Lakers are making the number 4 pick. But wait a minute. I thought that pick was part of the Anthony Davis trade, which technically still hasn't happened yet. So the rights to the pick went from the Lakers to New Orleans. Okay, so maybe New Orleans has the pick. No, they don't have the pick now because they made a deal on draft day to send that pick to the Hawks. So you're watching this as a spectator, and you're just very confused. So now when the pick comes up, they announce it, and the Los Angeles Lakers select DeAndre Hunter. But I thought he's a Hawk. Technically, as we record this show on June 21st, his draft rights are with the Los Angeles Lakers. And then you tie in the trade of Anthony Davis. Technically, Anthony Davis is not even a Los Angeles Laker. If the Lakers really wanted to play dirty, or New Orleans, they could move back on the deal, and that would just cause a whole bunch of confusion. These are all verbal agreements in essence. I mean, there's some legalities tied to it as well, but it's not binding really until the start of the new league season. So that's all I was seeing on Twitter and Instagram all during the entire draft, and it happened multiple times. A player will be selected, he's wearing the wrong hat. It's just very confusing. It's confusing to explain it right now to you as we talk about it. So, and I follow the sport a lot. I know the process. I understand it. But you have novices out there who are watching the draft for the first time. Maybe their team has a high selection, or they're interested in Zion Williamson, or they heard of John Morant, and they're like, okay, I'm going to give the draft a chance, and it just confuses everybody. So that's the part that annoys me so much about it, and I've been saying this for close to a decade now, why they can't make that alternative. Or if you don't let them wear the hat. If you know that the pick, if you have to announce technically the Lakers selected DeAndre Hunter, if you want to go by that, the legality of it, fine. But don't make him wear the hat. And then it makes it very awkward. He's up there. He knows that hat is not for the team that he's going to. And then in the interview, they have to talk in vague terms. You can't talk about the excitement of being a Laker, or you can't even say the excitement of being a Hawk because it's not completed yet. So that part I don't like. But the draft, they're trying to jazz it up. The pun's not intended there. The green carpet, I guess, is a tie-in to a sponsor. Usually it's the red carpet. But now you have the green carpet and you have the fashion. And we'll get to the fashion stuff a little bit later on. But they're trying to make it a big event. And it's good that it's in New York. Well, technically it was at Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. So not New York. Well, it's still New York City, if you want to get really, really technical. It's good that it's in New York. NFL's done a good job of moving the draft around. It was in Nashville this past year. It's been in Dallas, Philadelphia. They have the muscle to kind of pull that off. But for media purposes and for the big stage, for the NBA, it should be in New York. They've had drafts all over, and they've had them in Toronto, Vancouver one year, all that stuff. No, it should be in New York, whether it's Barclays, Radio City, Madison Square Garden, stuff like that. So I like that it's in New York, and they're trying to get excited. The interviews after the players were and they also are trying to take a note from, and these have been done before, but the interviews right after the pick is selected, Maria Taylor, she literally gets the player right after the selection. The player goes up, shakes Adam Silver, the NBA commissioner's hand, with the annoying cap, as we've gone over, and he goes straight to Maria. And Maria does a very good job. She's Georgia-based. We all know her in the local media. She's grown and developed her career very big time on ESPN. So it's good seeing her move up. But yeah, they get to the interview immediately, and it's just interesting seeing how they're trying to get the human side of these guys. She got the first three players to cry. I was very impressed by that. Well, actually impressed, but it was just like, wow, it was going to be a cry fest. But you got to realize these are 18, 19-year-old young men that are reaching their dreams. A lot of them have some interesting backstories. And now they're bringing the parents and getting them involved. And Zion with his mother, and had almost everyone crying because everyone loves their mother or a female figure in their life in a motherly role, whether it's your aunt, grandmother, something along those lines. So he's crying, thanking her. She's crying. It's like everyone's crying. And then John Morant and Barrett with their fathers, and Father's Day was this past week, so everyone's thinking about their dads. So all that stuff, I see what they're trying to do there, getting the parents and making it sentimental. But it's more crossover as well. You're trying to show the human element as well. These guys aren't robots. We look at them as these athletic figures, and all they do is basketball. But they're more evolved than that. All of them are. And you see the hard work. And if you're grown up or seen athletes in your family, whether it was high school or college level, you know how much time and effort goes into it. So for these guys to make it to that level is exciting. So they did a good way. I like how they did that as far as trying to get human interest going. Not my bag of tea, but I understand what they're trying to do in that regard. Still a long way to go, though, to catch up with the NFL. I said the pomp and circumstance of it. I think having it over one whole night is tough. The draft starts technically 7:30 Eastern Standard Time. We're based in Atlanta, so we're in Eastern time zone. The last pick was made around 11:30, 11:45. That's a lot to deal with. And you're saying, but the NFL is over 3 days. Fair point. But I think that one night on a Thursday, that's a lot to deal with in the summertime and things like that. Now, they could draw it out even longer. I do like the pacing of it. That's 5 minutes, I believe, in the first round. That's what I noticed. And I think the second round's even quicker, maybe around 2 or 3 minutes. So I do like that part of it. NFL can tend to lag a little bit in that regard. That's why I like the NHL draft, which takes place this weekend. I believe it's tonight on June 21st. I like the teams and like the war zone or the war room. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but where all the executives are on the floor of the arena or stadium where it's at, and then you have the fans and the families and the prospects in the stands, and then they walk up to the stage and they get the jersey. I do like the jersey. That's my favorite thing. And obviously, not they don't have the same issues as the NBA as far as their league season. So I like the big jersey. It adds a good visual. Sometimes you get the families up there on stage as well, and all of the executives from the team. So I like how the NHL does it. Maybe they can try to incorporate that a little bit more with the NBA as far as the actual pictures. And also, one more thing as far as the actual setup of it. I worked in media relations for years, so I had to run some of these banquets or sports information activities. So I have a keen eye for this stuff. When they announce the families that are with the players, I don't understand why they just couldn't say the name. I have to give Taz credit. The wrestler Taz and Moose, a show I listen to on CBS Sports Radio. Taz brought up a good point. Why don't they say the names of the family members while they're being announced? So it's like Zion Williamson, it said it was Zion Williamson with his mother and I guess brother, and he had a little kid with him. I believe it was his nephew. Say their names. It's not that hard to get the names of the people that they're that the family members of the players. Yeah, you've pushed the family angle with the mothers and the fathers and fiancés and sisters and brothers, all that stuff. But if they're announced, as far as they do like a little roll call before the draft starts, say their names. I think that would be a nice little touch as far as that goes. And then finally, we're in the millennial age. I'm 38, which is a good age because I'm older than all the draftees. So I can remember stuff in the 80s and 90s as far as seeing the drafts and seeing the fashion and approach to things. But I'm also not too old to not comprehend being in that age range. I'm not too far away from it. I mean, it's a different generation. I acknowledge that, but I'm not too far away. Especially when you have younger nieces and nephews kind of in that age range, you kind of know what their vibes are, what they're thinking, and things like that. Look, the outfits are going to be different. With the Darius Garland, I think it looked like a bathrobe with like he just needed house slippers and his hot cocoa to go to bed. I thought some people were saying the Jedi look. He had an open jacket with it literally looked like a bathrobe. So he had that look. You had guys with the different patterned suits and different hairstyles and it was all over the place. Zion, he had the all white with no tie. Some people were saying, wow, they're not wearing a tie. Look, that's the era. If you're guys 25 and under, that's the approach they want to have. And you just have to accept it. And I personally like a nice suit in that scenario. Like RJ Barrett, the pink jacket was a little much. I don't mind pink, but that type of pink was just a little, I didn't like it. That style of look, but that's what he's going to do. Bol had I guess you want to call it a black suit with the spider webbing across the left chest or left lapel with the webbing that was shiny. Not a look I would go with, but he is literally Bobo's about 19 years old. He just finished his freshman year at Oregon. That's the look that he's going to go for, and that's how it's going to be. So you just have to accept that and let the guys be. If they're going to have dreads, just accept it. If they're going to have earrings or do the shoes without socks, that's the look I cannot stand. I need to have some socks on. But that's me, though. But a lot of guys, they went with that look. So you just have to deal with the fashion and the social media aspect as well. These guys, that's just the way that things are. So I think it was funny seeing some of the comments of all the people watching. It's like, what is he wearing? Or what's going on there? Hey, that's just the age that we're in. I'm sure when you were in your 20s and you were wearing whatever the fashion was. I'll say this. I remember when the draft was going on when I was around their age. That was 20 years ago. This is a long time ago. But the big thing was like the baggy clothes and the big suits. And you have these 6'8", 6'9" men with oversized jackets and 10 buttons down the middle, and that was criticized as well. And I like that. I didn't mind that so much. When I was in that age range, I look back now, I was like, oh, that might not have been the best look. And I'm sure these guys, they'll look back at their draft pictures 10, 20 years from now. I was like, what was I wearing? What was I doing? But you gotta let it be. Let them live. The draft itself, the reason I actually talk about all this other stuff is that the draft itself is pretty straightforward. Zion Williamson, number one pick to the New Orleans Pelicans. No surprise there. The minute they won the lottery, we knew Zion was going there. I thought he handled himself well with the interviews. I say he had the emotional moment with his mother. We can all relate to that. He's very smooth in being in the spotlight. He knows that his life has changed forever. He's the main guy. He's going to be the new face of the NBA because you have the LeBrons and Steph Currys and Durant's. They're not going anywhere, but you can't play forever. Zion is putting himself in that spot of 4 or 5 years from now when those guys' careers are kind of winding down. It's going to be the Zion era, and he's acclimating himself well to it, and it's a very good story. I mean, he's a small town from Spartanburg, South Carolina, and is now the number one pick and probably the most hyped prospect since LeBron about 15 years ago. So if you know where he's from, I've been to Spartanburg many times and kind of know where his area is. To see him go from that to his year at Duke and now with the Pelicans, it's a big growth for him. John Morant too, he's from that area. He was number 2 overall to the Grizzlies, and he went to Murray State, which is in the same conference as Belmont, where school I went to. So I know I've been to Murray State several times as well, and to see a number 2 overall prospect come from Murray State, which is Murray, Kentucky, but the city is literally less than 10,000 people. It's a small town, and to see him go from that and being under recruited and reach that level is very good. He's going to do a very good job with the Grizzlies. RJ Barrett to the Knicks and number 3 overall. I like that pick. Obviously, the Knicks fans, they wanted Ja and especially wanted Zion. And the Knicks fans seemed destined to think that we're going to get Zion, we're going to win the lottery. And when it didn't happen, it was a little bit of a letdown. But I think Barrett's going to do a good job there. He's going to score. He has the ability defensively to be strong on that side of the court, but his main thing is he's going to be able to put up 20. Now, he's not going to get 20 points immediately, but even on a bad day, he's going to be able to put up points for you. And that's more than a lot of other guys can do. And he's a solid number 3 overall prospect. If we did this draft like last year and the prospects of it, like what's going to be the 2019 draft class, RJ would have been number 1 by a wide margin. That was the hype for him. Zion kind of came in there and took a lot of that away from him. But Barrett is still a very good prospect that's going to do quite well for the Knicks. And as far as Zion, my thoughts on him, we've tried the comparisons of Larry Johnson, Blake Griffin. I've heard Rodney Rogers, if you want to go way back to the Wake Forest product from the 90s. He is his own prospect. Now, is he going to be an all-time Hall of Famer, best to ever do it? We don't know that. But the physicality of being 6'8", 275, and a solid 275. Everyone's talking about him losing weight and trying to lean out. I don't think it's possible. Now, obviously, he can get better. He's going to get in better condition and as he gets acclimated to the NBA. But he's not going to get lean. Like, that's just his body type. Now, I do worry about his second contract. And what I mean by that is the first 3-4 years, I think he's going to be very solid and play well into his early 20s. When he gets into his mid to late 20s, you do worry about the torque on his body, especially his joints, the knees. I see him do the dunks and how physical he plays. I'm very concerned about his knees holding up. That's the only part I'm worried about. I'm not worried about his ability to defend or to shoot or to getting into the paint is not a problem. I'm literally worried about his knees. And I think if his knees can hold up with that weight and the way he plays, there's no reason the man cannot be a top 5 player in the NBA. And as his mentality is very good, he plays the game well, very good passer for someone you think could be a ball hawk and have possession of it the entire time. No, he passes it, the dribbling. They're making his dribbling's overhyped a little bit, I think. I think they make it seem like he can run point. No, he's not that level of a dribbler, but he is good enough. And he's getting to the point where you can just throw it inside. He's going to give you points or draw fouls, and he's at that stage of his career. even right now, he hasn't even played a game in the NBA. So he's very good there. As far as Ja goes, I think he's the Westbrook comparison is very fair. That's what I've seen from him. But I think he's Westbrook with better passing, and that's saying a lot. I mean, Westbrook is been All NBA, MVP, all of that stuff. But I think Morant, and he can shoot as well. I think if I could have argued that Morant could have been the number 1 overall pick. I think Zion is the best prospect, and then you look at the marketing and the ability to draw eyes to you. It's a business as well. I mean, it's wins and losses, but you want to make a profit as well. So I understand why Zion went number 1, but Morant, I think, is one of the better guard prospects that we've seen come through the past 4 or 5 years because he can do it all. His shooting ability is tremendous. He's a willing passer, very good passer. I mean, we could lead the nation to be in the top 2 or 3 in scoring and assist. I don't care who you're playing with. You could be playing for an AC team or Ohio Valley or a WAC team. It does not matter. When I say WAC, the conference, not WAC as the team. You can play anywhere in the nation. If you can put up those numbers on a Division I level, you're a pro prospect. And he's done it on the highest level that he could have at Murray State. So I like him as well. And then the draft really got interesting, I think, with the DeAndre Hunter. And this is where we get to the Hawks themselves. So all you Hawks fans, I'm going to get to you now. I like what they did with the draft. We'll start with DeAndre Hunter with the Atlanta. The problem, not problem, but the thing Atlanta's been trying to develop is they're getting the offense is good. Trae Young, potential rookie of the year prospect, he had a very good rookie year. Kevin Huerter was a first round pick last year. Those two, that backcourt came in together, put together good things. John Collins, I think, could be an all-star. He's second half of the year, if you look at his numbers, was averaging 20 and 10. Tremendous performer there. And that's all fine and good, but defensively, they've lacked. And that's what Hunter gives them. If you're looking for the prototypical 3-and-D, the Draymond Green type of player that all the teams are looking for right now, Hunter has the best capability of doing that. He has good size. He could defend multiple positions. Now, I don't know if he's going to defend centers or point guards, but 2 through 4, if you're looking at traditional shooting guard in the both forward spots, he could switch off the screens. He could defend very well. And centers, I don't think will be a big problem if it ever gets to that. While, yes, the center is changed, it's not to the level of the Patrick Ewings and Shaquille O'Neals and Hakeem Olajuwon's big 7-foot guys that bang against you and post you up. That still exists in some regard in certain scenarios, but it's a more wide open game. So I think Hunter will benefit from that. So I like that pick as far as that goes. And then Atlanta followed it up with selecting Cam Reddish out of Duke with the 10th pick. Reddish is a top 5, top 10 talent. He just needs to find that consistency. And I think those two forwards or wings, I say forwards, I really mean wings. You can never have enough of them. You can find an Alex Lynn or a Dwayne Dedman that are on the roster now to technically be your 5, and that's fine and good. And those guys are actually, I think, better pros than people give them credit for. But they're 5s that can go down the side, give you some rebounding, at least, especially on Dedman at least. Lynn, not so much. But you can have that center if you want that traditional guy. But the league is so perimeter oriented. If you can throw out a 5 of Young, Huerter, Hunter, Reddish, and then John Collins, all those guys can do anything on the court for you, and the flow offensively will be tremendous. But let's hear from Travis Schlenk, the general manager, with his selection process of picking Cam Reddish.
We were in contact with Cam and his representatives throughout the whole process. Obviously, we brought him here in Atlanta. He's a guy that we identified early on in the process, all the way back to when he was in high school. What we like about Cam is obvious, right? The length, the skill set. He can dribble, pass, he can shoot. He's a good defensive player. Played on the ball a lot in high school. And then he had to take a step back this year at Duke, and he did that willingly. So we love his commitment to the team and his skill set. So we're extremely excited he's there. Being in close contact with his agents, we had an an idea that he might get there. So we rolled the dice a little bit, and it worked out for us. Well, we found out as soon as the 9th pick came in that Cam was going to be our guy. But like I just said, we throughout the process, we're constantly talking to the agents, talking to other teams, just trying to get a sense who might be where in the draft. And obviously, we had the 10th pick, and we felt there was a great opportunity that he might be there, and we kind of gambled on it. We had him ranked higher than that on our board, but we felt like we might be able to get him there. And so we rolled the dice, and we won today.
All right, and that was General Manager Travis Schlenk discussing the selection of Cam Reddish. Let's hear from Cam Reddish himself. He discussed being selected with the Hawks and what he expects for this upcoming season.
Yeah, for sure. I got a little chip on my shoulder. Coming in and prove myself. But it takes a ton of hard work to get to that point. So I'm ready to get there. Get healthy and get to work. Yeah, a high character guy. And then obviously I feel like I have a unique skill set on the offensive end of the floor. And I feel like I'm a good defender. I can defend at a high level. And so I feel like I can do on both ends of the floor. Yeah, for sure. I like his coaching style. He's real straight up, and he's ready to help me. Get to the best player I can possibly be. So I'm ready to soak it all in. Do everything he tells me to do, and just go from there. Yeah, I see a young, talented group, and I'm ready to come in and be the best addition to the team I can possibly be. And I feel like once we get to learn each other and things like that, and build that chemistry, we'll be one of the best teams in years to come.
All right, and that was Cam Reddish discussing his prospects with Atlanta, and I put it out there on social media. As I mentioned, with the combination of guys currently with the Hawks and Trae Young, Huerta, and John Collins, and you bring in Hunter and Reddish, I think that's the best group of 5 of under 22-year-olds in the NBA. And that's something you don't have to say about the Hawks having the best of something in the NBA. Now, there's some other teams that have spots of guys like that. But as far as a group of 5, I think 5 guys who can be solid NBA starters. I think Young and Collins and Hunter have all-star aspirations. And Huerta and Reddish, I think, can maybe reach that level as well. I think there's some more development that needs to come from those two. But those are 5 solid NBA starters, and none of them have even reached the age of 22. That's a very special situation for them. And I don't think none of them turned 23, I think, even through this upcoming upcoming calendar year. So all of them are under 23 and are all going to have at least 1 year of experience in the NBA. And Travis discussed a little bit further the building of this roster from last year to this year. So here he is talking about roster development.
It's very important. We talked about this as this year played out this year. I got lots of questions about, you guys shouldn't be winning these games down the end. You heard your draft status. Listen, we want guys that know how to win, that know how to close games, and being able to learn that process in high school, in college, in the NBA is all extremely valuable. So, going through the process, we had 5 picks, maybe potentially more as the draft played out. We knew we didn't want to have 5+ rookies on the roster, so we did the best we could to try to figure out how to maximize each pick the best we could. So with some of the second-round picks that we traded away, we got future second-round picks, kind of kick them down the line. And those are valuable, even the protected one. Like that protected pick, we could use in a trade. Any deal that we would do now, between now and 2024, we could use that in a traded player, in a cash trade. You need those picks to make transactions, so they hold value. And then you're allowed to take in $5 million in cash a year. So when teams are going to give us a future second and cash, we're going to try to maximize that as well.
And once again, that was General Manager Travis Schlenk discussing the process of his selections for this year. But this is third draft as the GM of the Hawks. His first year, he selected John Collins in the middle of the first round, who's developed into one of the better young post players in the NBA. Last year was the big trade, which was swap between Dallas and the Hawks, which in essence sent the Luka Doncic to the Mavericks. And now Trae Young and Cam Reddish are with the Hawks. That completes that deal. So he's been very active over those past 2 years, and now this year with the selection of Hunter and with Reddish. So he's been very active the past 3 years, moving picks around. He touched a little bit on that, as he mentioned, with the second round and using that allotted money for different scenarios. But here's his overarching thoughts on what the past 3 years have been like for him.
Where you thought things are? No, I mean, we feel good about the way the drafts have played out for us. This is my third draft here, so we feel good. If you think back all the way to, 2019, 17, I guess. I walked out and told you we were really excited about John Collins. We had him ready to hire, and, he's been great. Last year, we made a big move and a big gamble, and we feel like that really paid off. And this year, we feel like we got lucky again. I say it all the time, it's better to be lucky and good in this business. And I'll tell you, take being lucky, and we've been lucky the last few years. The guys that we like have been there when we picked.
Yep, so that's his overarching thoughts just over the past 3 years of everything that's been going on with the Hawks. So, yeah, big developments there for Atlanta. We're going to run through the rest of the picks past there. Darius Garland to Cleveland. As a Vanderbilt Commodore, very good to see him get selected. He didn't play much for Vandy this year. Had a knee injury, so he was unable to play. He only played, I believe, 5 games overall for Vandy, but excited to see him with the opportunity. He's a Tennessee guy. He's from Nashville. I went to Brentwood. Very local guy, so good to see him do well. Him going to Cleveland, though, I'm interested to see how he's going to work along Colin Sexton in the Cavs backcourt. I know John Beilein's a new head coach from Michigan. He was with the Wolverines for many years. Now he's the head coach of the Cleveland Cavaliers. I know his offense has a lot of cuts, a good flow to it, so it's not necessarily a ball-centric offense, not like how Houston does with James Harden, where it's a lot of isolation. So Garland and Sexton can kind of work together. I guess what you want to see is maybe what Portland has in their backcourt with McCollum and with Dame Lillard. But that's a lot to ask for those two guys to reach that level. And we've seen that backcourt have some success, but they reach a point of not getting to where they need to go. I mean, it's a long rebuilding process, and you have to believe that Tristan Thompson and Kevin Love have to be on the trading block for Cleveland, so we'll see what happens there. But, I mean, good pick for them, but it's just you have two point guards who kind of like to have a ball in their hand. We'll see how that goes. We've seen the struggles with Harden and Chris Paul in Houston to the highest level, them competing for a championship. Cleveland's not there yet, but I'll see what the development could be. Culver to Minnesota, very interesting. I would like to see Kobe White go there from North Carolina. I think a point guard is needed for Minnesota. You obviously have it's Wiggins and Towns. I mean, that's the team right now. That's who they're going to ride with the midseason trade of Jimmy Butler away from there. That's who they're going to roll with. So in Culver, while he does handle the ball okay, he's not necessarily a point guard. I think they needed to have a steady hand there. White ended up going to the Bulls later on in the draft. And Culver's a solid prospect, and he'll work it out. But I guess they figured they're going to ride with Jeff Teague in his last year there. I just don't know about that. And you get to the point when you're at this stage of even the middle of the lottery where you have to make that choice. Are you going to draft for position and try to build your lineup there, or are you just going to go with the best player? I think they want the best player scenario, and I think Cleveland definitely did that with Garland, where it'd be nice to have a post for Cleveland. It'd be nice to have a post player, but Garland's the best guy on our board. We're going to take him. I think Culver with Minnesota. Do we need another kind of perimeter wing guy in that scenario? Probably not, but Culver's the guy that we had up there, so we're going to take him. So I think Culver's going to be a solid pro. I just don't know if Minnesota is going to be his ultimate landing spot for long-term purposes. Kobe White to Chicago, as I mentioned, the North Carolina point guard. I like that pick. You have him and Levine now in the backcourt. If Levine sticks around in Chicago, we'll see what happens there. But you have Lauren Markkinen as well. So I like what they're building in Chicago. Long-term rebuild there as well. But I think White's going to be good for them. I think New Orleans taking Hayes, the center from Texas. Him and Zion will be interesting as far as a front court combo. And let's look at the Pelicans. They've been very active with their trades and their picks. I think what's going to end up happening as far as their lineup goes, Lonzo Ball and Drew Holiday in the backcourt's interesting. I think they should ride that out, have those two play together. I know Holiday's a point guard as well, but I think Lonzo Ball and I know his father has caused a lot of distractions. And Lonzo, his issue is staying on the court. He's dealt with some injuries. But if he's on the court with Holiday, especially with Ball's height and his length, I think that could be a good guard combination. And then you look at the rest of the team. Brandon Ingram, it's a walk year for him. He's an impending free agent. If he doesn't put up right now, he's not going to make that big money. So I think he's going to have a good year for them. And in Zion as well, as far as the forward, power forward, small forward, he's a forward. You just work with it. You need a post guy, though, to take care of defensive responsibilities. And while Hayes has a lot to develop on the offensive end, defensively, he's a 7-footer. You know he's going to block shots, give you some rebounds. And that's very important because, as I said, Zion and Ingram, while they're very good players, they can be undersized height-wise. I think it's a good grouping as far as that goes. So I like that pick to Hayes. He's a project, but I think in that scenario, it's going to be all right for him. I love the pick of Rui for the Washington Wizards, the Gonzaga prospect. I thought he would have gone higher in the draft. I know people question his consistency and I guess intensity, but as far as skill set goes, especially on the defensive end, but if you look at his skill set, I don't know if there is a better post player outside of Zion as far as in the paint, as far as getting shots up and things like that. Defensively, you'd like to see a little bit more, but I think he's a very good prospect for Washington, and dollars are a big factor in this as well. You saw the hype and hysteria for him being the first Japanese-born athlete selected in the NBA draft. That's going to be a lot of bank for the Wizards. A lot of money, especially in that city. You saw the Yao Ming effect in China with the Rockets, which is still felt today. The Rockets still have strong commerce in China because of Yao Ming. And Yao Ming ended up becoming a very good player for them, the Hall of Famer. So it worked out on the court as well as off the court. Now, I'm not saying Rui's going to be a Hall of Famer yet. We don't know that yet. He's not the prospect that Yao was. But just the fact that he is going to bring a lot of eyes and attention to your franchise is a very smart move. And if you don't think that's a factor, any business that you run, you want to bring commerce and you want to bring more attention, especially sports is entertainment. So if you could bring a player and that's going to bring more attention and bring more excitement, and especially in an international market like Japan or all of Asia, that's a very big factor for him as far as getting that going. So I like that pick for the Wizards on and off the court. And let's see the other picks. I'm literally pulling up the list right now of the rest of the first round. Let's see. Romeo Langford going to let's see from second. So going to the Celtics, solid move there. I think that he could be a guy. He's so young. He could develop into something respectable. Tyler Hero, a little bit high for me. The freshman from the shooting guard from Kentucky going to the Miami Heat. I was a little bit surprising. I thought Langford would have been a nice pick there for Miami. And let's see, Darius Bazley. Yeah, he may have been one of the bigger winners from it. If you remember him, he was the Syracuse commit from last year that decided to forego the scholarship and to take an internship with New Balance and really train for this draft. He got $1 million as far as his internship goes. So he worked at New Balance and did some things there. He ended up getting selected by the Jazz. He got the first round selection. So you have to give him credit that it worked out for him. And I look at a lot of these picks as well, and another show will delve a little bit deeper into this as well. I look at the selections, especially, and for those of you also with the draft, if you're drafted in the first round, it's a guaranteed contract. That means you're selected, that you're automatically going to be on the team in some form. Second round picks are not guaranteed contracts. And I see a lot of underclassmen. I'm not going to single anyone out. You see, have some seniors there, which is fine. But I see a lot of freshmen and some sophomores that are drafted in second round. They can't go back to college. They're professionals now. not everyone is going to be a tragic story and not make it, but your odds are a lot harder. There are some underclassmen that weren't even selected by a team. So they're going to have to go into summer league and try to ball out there or play internationally. It just makes it very, very tough. So for every Zion and Cam Reddish and RJ Barrett, these freshmen, they get selected very high. There are a lot of other guys who do not get selected high. And college isn't for everybody. Some of these guys, they want to become professionals and get that clock started, and that's understandable. But every year you look at the list and you're like, man, that guy really could have used another year or two of college. And I'm not saying just for the academics. I mean, academics are important, but even just for their development as a player, they could have used another year in college or year or two. So you look at the list and it's just like, man, I see some of these guys and it's like he really could have used another year as far as playing collegiately. So that's what I see with the list. And we may break that down a little bit further in our next Stagger Screen, which will be really more free agent centric. And I think with that as well, maybe we'll see some other underclassmen get contracts, maybe some tryouts, and that'll make the picture a little bit obvious for us. All right, so we're going to take our final break, and when we come back, we'll delve into free agency and see what's going on there here on the Stagger Screen. All right, and we're back and wrap up our returned Stagger Screen podcast. Yeah, so the ramifications of the draft, I don't think will have a major impact on free agency. The only thing that would have been interesting is that if the Lakers were not able to pull off their trade with Anthony Davis, maybe they would have gone a different direction, but that trade is happening, even though the league doesn't want to acknowledge it yet. So I think once that happened, everything else is going to be pretty straightforward. I think, the Durant's, the Kyrie's, Klay Thompson's, Kemba Walker, Jimmy Butler's, all those guys, Chris Middleton now, even Al Horford, and we've seen some guys opt out of deals. I think they're going to go their own directions. I don't think we'll see too many packages going on. Kawhi as well. Yeah, Kawhi should be in that list, of course. The NBA Finals MVP. I think those guys are, at first you thought there'd be some package deals going on, especially the Kyrie and Durant situations of those guys maybe trying to go to the Nets or the Knicks. We've heard that for a long time. They're close. Things like that. I don't know if that's going to be the case now. Just the injuries have affected a lot, especially with Golden State, with Durant and Thompson. I think those dominoes. I think Klay was going to resign before the injury because he didn't want to lose out on the $30+ million that he would lose if he signed with somewhere else. I mean, I know he's a free agent. He wants to explore his options, but that's a lot of money for him to turn down. And plus, he is part of that. Klay, Curry, and Draymond Green are that core that have been there since the beginning. Durant's kind of been the outsider that's gone in there. He's done well for them, and they like him. But Durant's more of the guy who he's kind of the – and they'd want him back. Trust me, he's maybe the best player in the world pre-injury. So they'd want him back. But Klay and Steph, the Splash Brothers, that's a combo that are probably going to play together maybe the rest of their careers. But they get the injury. He's not going to want to move, I don't think, recovering from an ACL and trying to deal with all of that. Durant's the wild card. He's out for next year, you would assume, with the Achilles. Does he want to rehab in San Francisco with the Warriors and be in a comfort zone? Maybe he has distrust with the Warriors. We've talked about this on our Sports Inquirer show. Hey, he was cleared to play. He's a grown man. It's sports. Injuries happen. So I don't blame anybody for the injury. As far as the Warriors' doctors, his own doctors, Durant, that's just the way it works. But does he have distrust with the Warriors' training staff as far as rehabbing from the injury? Does he have bitterness over possibly being forced to play, in his opinion, that game that ultimately he tore his Achilles in the finals? So what happens there with that? The Kyrie deal, we've seen reports now that maybe the Nets are hesitant to sign Kyrie. Now, if Kyrie is part of a package deal with a Kevin Durant, yeah, that's good. We can work those two together. But we've seen Kyrie as the main cog of a team in Boston. It didn't work out so well. So the Nets are hesitant with that. the Clippers are lurking as well. They have 2 max slots available. So it's a lot going on there as far as the free agency goes. Now, Lakers themselves, and we'll end on this, they continue to get in their own way. They did the Anthony Davis trade for Ball, Ingram, Josh Hart, and the 3 draft picks, first rounders, including this year's draft pick. But they miscalculated the numbers as far as when the trade will take place and how to maneuver it. So they've cost themselves at least $4 million with the trade kick-in as far as how much they can spend on free agency or to re-sign guys and things along those lines. I think once again you see the dysfunction of the Lakers that we've seen with Pelinka and Rob Pelinka, the general manager, and Jeannie Buss, the owner, Magic Johnson, who was the executive vice president there, and he left at the end of the regular season. They just are so disorganized. And we've heard about the potential Phil Jackson, Kobe Bryant influences, the Rambis family, from Linda Rambis to Kurt Rambis. Just a lot of people involved in the selection in the process of the Lakers' development that this should not happen as far as having issues with not knowing the ramifications of your trade and costing yourself spending money. They got Anthony Davis, which you could say that's the biggest thing. All the minutia of the money, it doesn't matter. You have LeBron James and Anthony Davis together, 2 of probably the top 5 players in the league when they're both healthy and running. So everything else kind of works itself out. You kept Kyle Kuzma, who I thought would be traded in that Davis deal, but they were able to keep Kuzma, which is a very good job by the Lakers in that regard. So they figure, hey, we got our 3 guys, and we'll figure it out the rest of the way. But there are smoother ways to do it than they did as far as the trade goes. But we'll see what happens with the development of it. Maybe it doesn't matter that they have a few extra $1 million less to spend. Maybe they can still work it out with bringing in some veterans or some other younger guys to kind of fill out the roster. So we'll see what happens there. All right, that was a fun show. I was very excited to bring back the Stagger Screen. We'll try to do it. We'll do another one at least when free agency starts in the next few weeks. And then we'll try to do it more often once the regular season starts up later on in the 2019 calendar year. But as always, if you want to, and we'll talk basketball throughout the summer as well, but maybe not a show specific to this. But if you want to hear more of our content, go to thesportsinquirer.net. Make sure you check the site out. And you can go to all of our social media platforms on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, under Sports Inquirer. And then finally, if you want to subscribe to us on YouTube and SoundCloud, that'd be really good. And that's where you get all of our archived shows from now until eternity. Until next time, have a good day.